gonna make a video here this morning about escaping a bad job, or let's just be honest, you're escaping a bad supervisor or a bad boss, and you may feel like you're never going to get ahead or escape. I just escaped from a narcissistic personality disorder with ADD. Supervisor. It was a terrible experience. After working for her less than 2 years, I felt completely hopeless, defeated, like I was stupid, that I couldn't do anything. I couldn't do anything right. I haven't been in that office in like a month, and I'm still walking around, doing things, moving, packing boxes, finding a new place to live, just finding my way around town, trying to figure out how to do simple things in this house. And I still feel like I'm going to fail at everything, like I'm not competent. Every little tiny thing I do that I do correctly is like just an experience I haven't had in a long time, a feeling that I haven't had in a long time of being able to do something. When you get in with a bad supervisor and they're narcissistic or whatever, it is their goal to drag you down, to make you feel worthless, and to make you feel like you can't succeed at anything and that you're stupid. That's exactly what happened to me, and I know, I'm not brilliant, but I know I'm at least average intelligence and probably a little bit more. And I know that I'm detail-oriented, and I know that I'm going to show up to a job, I'm going to be there on time, I'm going to be dressed appropriately, I'm going to talk to people appropriately. I don't have any of those kinds of problems, and so any kind of mid-level administrative medium complexity job I can do, okay? But I left there feeling like I couldn't do anything. It's been terrible. But I'll tell you a way that you can go from, making dollars per hour to making a good salary. Okay, this is what I did, and I think it's important to start to make a plan and to always have a plan, even if you don't really have a narcissistic boss like I did, supervisor. Just because the economy is not good, when different presidents get in office, different things get emphasized, different things get let go of. Like, for example, when Biden first got in, there was a lot of talk about Americans with Disability Act, inclusion, all of these equity, diversity and equity, ensuring all of these things in offices, especially in government and public offices. Okay, so I could see that there was going to be a lot of work in that, and I work in a university setting. I'm an educator. And after a while now, and I'm not sure, in our state, there was an end put to this diversity and equity and inclusion hiring practices. And I, for one, I'm all for diversity and equity and inclusion, but I was glad to see some of that go, because every time you would sit down to fill out an application or a resume or whatever, they would ask for these long, complex statements about diversity and equity and inclusion and how you've worked to ensure equity, in your job for the past 4 or 5 years, and how you're going to continue to promote equity in your next job. And it's like, I just didn't have the time or the patience or whatever to sit down and write an essay about that. I almost thought about just paying somebody to write something up for me. But anyway, I haven't had to write one lately. Okay, so my situation was that I was in school, I was getting a PhD, and COVID hit. And I kind of got sidetracked from writing my dissertation. And I was home, I was living on student loans. I was home alone for 9 months. And so during that time, I had a little bit of time to think about what I wanted to do. And I had decided by month 5 that I wasn't going to write my dissertation. I already had a finite degree before that, and I didn't feel really, I don't want to blame it on my committee. because they let me go a long time without producing anything. But my dissertation topic was was complex, like they all are, of course. And I just don't, to tell you the truth, I just didn't feel like writing it. I would sit down to write, and I've written so many papers. There's like hundreds of papers. So it's not about an inability to write. I just was exhausted. I was exhausted from the emotional stress of being in a PhD program, and I was exhausted every time I sat down to write. And all of the COVID culture was tiring me out even more. And for a while, I couldn't even get to the library and get research materials. It's too bad, because during COVID, it would have been a perfect time for me to write it up. But anyway, I didn't. And so then I had to figure out, well, okay, what am I going to do with my life? And I had been student teaching or something at the time. And I wasn't, after a while, I wasn't student teaching anymore. And so I found I have always had a lot of skill in graphic arts. And so I found, and layout, like print layout, catalog layout. I had some of that in my background. And I found a job at the University Health Library doing print layout for them and website updates and things like this. And it was like I think it paid like $17 an hour. And it was part-time, all right? And I begged the head of that library, and I knew that it was part-time, and they told me when I was hired that it wasn't going to go full-time. But at the time, I was in school when I took it, so I thought part-time is perfect. Then I wasn't in school because of COVID, so then I started asking them if there was any possibility I could get full-time, and they just said no. And every time the head librarian would come in, I would sort of ask him, like, gee, do you think you could make this position full-time for me? And he would say no, And one of the final straws there for me was I have a master's degree in communications, okay, and an MFA in art, and my background in studio art is mostly graphics, and I had worked in communications and graphics professionally for like 10 years. One of the last straws there for me is the head librarian came into my office and told me that they were hiring a communications librarian, and I would work under this librarian. I'm like, no, I won't. This is the head librarian who told me this, and then my supervisor, another librarian, came in after him. And I mean, I have more attitude than I should. I gave it some thought, and I just was not going to do that, because I knew that I was like, explain to me what this communications librarian is going to do. And he said, oh, they're going to take over the design of the website, writing up letters, work with you on the newsletter, these types of things. And I just said no. When my supervisor came in, I said, no, I'm not going to work under anybody doing those kinds of things, especially like a librarian who's going to make a salary, have health insurance benefits, special accounts that they make for professional academics and educators, like a pension thing, I said, I'm not going to do it. And she's like, why not? And I said, because. I said, what are they going to do? They're going to come in here and tell me what graphics to put on the website? I've been putting graphics on the website for a year now, and everybody likes the graphics I do. I mean, I have advanced degrees in communications and graphics. And this librarian, you're not going to get a librarian who can do any of these things in Adobe. They're just, if they're librarians, they're not going to be graphic artists. And so they're going to come in and tell me to make graphic arts? I already make graphic arts. No, I'm just not going to do it. I said that person is going to get a full-time salary and benefits, and I'm going to be doing all the work. They're going to be coming in here and telling me what to do. And I said, I don't mind being told what to do, but I'm not going to be told what to do, or, I don't remember how I put it, but it wasn't like told what to do. I don't remember exactly what I said, but I was like, I'm not going to have you come in, have somebody come in and work over me, who is essentially, I'm doing all the work for them, and they're getting all the benefits, especially when I'm more than 100% capable of doing that job myself. And she said, I understand completely, and you're right. She goes, I'll talk to him. So in the meantime, Biden got elected, and there was all of this policy discussion about diversity and equity and inclusion, right? And Americans with Disability Act. And so I started looking into it, and I started looking at help wanted jobs for, I forget, it's just something in education with layout and ADA. Okay, I put like those two search things together, and or library and layout, whatever. And I started looking for jobs, graphics, these sorts of things. And I kept seeing, that they were looking for graphic arts people who also could do layout of catalogs and design websites, all in compliance with ADA. So I thought, well, what is, this ADA, and I found a little course on Coursera. It was $45. And it was like nothing to it, it was like a few weeks, and and it has pretty interesting articles in it, and I wrote up a few things, and they have these little quizzes, and I think it was totally self-paced. I can't even remember. And then there was the one thing about Coursera that you have to be careful about is sometimes they'll do like peer grading, and you might not be able to find a peer who will grade your work, right? So your work sits there and sits there and sits there, and you're waiting for your certificate, and you never get it, all right? Or you get it months later after you beg somebody to read your papers. But for some reason I was lucky, and I got another girl to read my papers, and I read hers, and we got through this class together. And it really kind of was interesting, and it was for $45, you couldn't beat it. So then the next thing is I had this on my resume that I was doing layout, and I had ADA, and I had called over to the university ADA office and asked them to look at a layout of mine to make sure that it was compliant. And I got to talking to the woman who had the special ed office there, and she said, oh, we just hired somebody to do ADA, checking the website and all of our documents. I was like, oh, okay, where's she from, And I had no idea at that point that I was going to try to work in ADA. But so I asked her, what's her background? I said, I'm just sort of interested in this because I took a course, and I'm making sure everything at the library here is ADA accessible. And she said this same university that I had taken the Coursera from, the Coursera course. And this university is well known they have an ADA design program there, like a master's, and she had gone through that program. And she came for an interview and was hired by this woman, and spent like a couple hours with her and decided she didn't like her and quit. Right? And if I had been smart, I would have paid attention. But I did not pay attention. And the next thing I know, this woman was calling me and offering me a job, and it was a salaried position for doing layout for the health sciences school, and making sure it was all ADA compliant, everything at the university, right? Anything on the web, flyers, any kind of catalog, any kind of, whether it went out to the public or it was, distributed in office, this sort of thing, everything, right? And you would think that would pay like 60 grand a year. It didn't. It paid a lot less, like, I don't know, 48 grand or something. But it was more certainly than I was making at the library, and it was full-time, and it had full benefits. So I took this job, and I went over and met this woman, and this woman, honestly, like, if you've listened to some of the videos that I've posted earlier on this channel, you would think nobody could be worse than the supervisor I just left. But this woman that I took this job with, she was even worse. Okay, she was even worse. I'm not going to get into all of that because I spent like months complaining about, or I made a bunch of videos recently complaining about my last boss and how I jumped from one frying pan into the other. But this woman, she was even worse, okay? And after I had been there like a month, I figured out why this woman came in. She came in, she worked there for, I swear, for like a couple of hours, and she left. And I'm like, well, why'd she leave, And she's like, I don't know, big mystery. Well, it's no mystery. This woman was even worse. I wouldn't call her a narcissist, but she was a bully, and she was hormonal, and she was nasty. Okay, and but anyway, I worked there for 17 months or whatever, and then while I was there, Okay, now this is the part where I'm going to not talk about me, but I'm going to talk about a little less about me and more about how you can progress in a career. All right, so I took the Coursera job, right? I went from an hourly job to a salary job full time. I made an investment of $45, okay? And I made that money back. And, hand over fist, it was so worth it. Because then I could say, well, I'm an instructional designer, but I have this special skill set. So whatever it is that you do, if you want to get out of that job, right? And I'm not talking about promoted, because promoted within a role might require other certain things, skill sets, or another type of path that I really don't know about and can't advise about. I can tell you, though, how to get out of one sucky job and find a better one. Okay, so first of all, when you take the first job, right, start going to the help wanted as soon as you get it, and the job boards or Jobs Indeed. If you don't know how to find a bulletin job, like, call the career services at the university or your college or your local library and ask them, can you help me find this? Like reference librarians, they love to look stuff up for you and they'll help you find something. Another way you can find is like trade magazines or whatever. Okay, so I did that, and I had these degrees, but I didn't have a degree in instructional design. And to get it is like a two-year commitment, and I was working full time. So how was I going to do this? Well, you have to take classes at night and I can only take like one or two at a time, because I like to do other things at night, and I am super tired at night. And so I only really have the weekends to do my studying and homework and stuff like that. So one class was a lot for me. Taking two was an extra lot. But I have known people, professionals who have the energy, and they're maybe younger than me or whatever, and they took three at a time. Okay, I don't know how they did it, but I just took. So what I did was I looked at what is the degree I need in this to be legitimate in this field, and I had educational benefits at my job, and so the first thing I did was I didn't enroll in a master's. I enrolled in a graduate certificate, because you can put that you have the graduate certificate on your resume, and put your expected date of graduation will be sooner, right, than if you put down a master's. Like, who the hell knows when you're going to be done with it? It took me, I started 2019, it took me 2014 to finish up and get this master's, right, because I just took one or two classes at a time. Now, I could have probably have taken more faster, but I broke bones, and I was, I had a broken wrist for some time, and I had these other things that happened. So I did, take them slowly. I just took one class at a time. There was no huge rush, because I was employed. But the strategy that I want to get across to you is enroll in the shorter thing first, so you can have that in your resume, okay? And you can put down an expected date of graduation, and it's not that far off for a graduate certificate. You could even say you're going to get it in the next year. If you have to move it out, after 6 months, you look at the graduation date, like, it's not going to matter. Do you see what I'm saying? Like, you just, like, in 6 months, you can move that date out another 6 months. It's not going to make any difference if you're sending out resumes to people. But what you want to do is have the closest date to you that you can find that you're going to get a certificate. Now, it doesn't have to be a graduate certificate. There are all kinds of different certificates you can get, professional and otherwise. I don't know about getting Google certificates and Microsoft certificates. I suppose if you really want, or data analytic or a boot camp certificate, I don't go that route. I just don't think that they are as valuable as an actual college certificate, a graduate certificate, or even a community college certificate. I think those programs, like, in my opinion, are a better bet because they're established, and local employers are going to know about graduates coming out of those programs, and they're going to be more likely to hire. Okay? So anyway, I enrolled in the certificate, and I have that on my resume, okay? And I knew that down the road, if I needed to, I could roll that graduate certificate into a graduate degree. And I took one class at a time, and that's what I'm recommending you do. Now, if don't bother trying to find a part-time gig, driving an Uber car, or working in a coffee restaurant on the weekends to supplement your income, getting a part-time job at the supermarket when you're working full-time. Don't bother, okay? If you think that you're going to start a website and sell web design services, you're going to do bookkeeping on the side, all of these things, don't bother. The chances of, this is a truth bomb, okay, the chances of you being successful starting some little project like that and having it work out to the point that it's worth it for you are like 20%. 20 people out of 100. Most, even the best of businesses fail, okay? And so hoping that you're going to, make some big change in your life monetarily by doing some kind of thing that's not related to your full-time work, that's like a little adventure and self-employment, it's not going to work, okay? Most likely it won't work. It'll fail within 3 months, it'll fail within 6 months, and it's just really hard to do, okay? Especially right now in a bad economy. I would just say don't even bother. The better thing that you could do is, say you wanted to get that little part-time job and you were going to keep it you were only planning on keeping it for a year. What you're better off doing is getting a credential in that year that shows that you have skill sets, okay? And here's another reason why. Because if you have a crappy boss like I did, they're not going to you're not going to be able to use them for a reference. My supervisor was going around talking bad about me to everybody, and I knew she was doing it because I heard her over monitors, okay? I couldn't guarantee that she was going to give me a reference, and I knew she wasn't going to give me one, and I didn't want to ask her to. Like, you don't want to go up to your boss and say, hey, I'm trying to look for another job, will you give me a reference? Like, you don't want to tell them that, because then they're just going to treat you even worse, or they're going to jump for joy that you're leaving. That's like what my supervisor did. So if you can get into a certificate program and establish a rapport with the teachers in that program, they may be willing to give you, and you go to them and you say, look, I'm in this situation, I'm in a terrible job, I need to get out of it, please would you provide me a reference? And just, they might say, well, I can provide you an academic reference, but I don't know anything about how you work. Just say, look, try to get a good rapport with one and just say, okay, can I list you then? I'll just put you down as a reference. Don't say anything to them. Don't make a distinction with, I'll only use you for professional, I'll only use you for academic or whatever. Don't do that. Just say you'll use them for a reference. And then when you are doing your resume, put them down under professional reference. They're not going to call them anyway. In the past 3 jobs I've gotten, nobody has checked references, and I can guarantee you that nobody checked my supervisor's references, because she told me herself that she was going to get fired from her last position for being a lousy manager, and that she was forced to take this job because she was at my university because she was going to get fired at her last job. Yep. And if my university had known that, they wouldn't have hired her, right? She didn't have any reference, okay? So just put this person's number. The chances of them actually calling them and asking them for a reference are so nil. And then if they do, either they give you the reference or they don't. But just the chances are they're not even going to check it. So just put them down. And then they'll just, if they do call, then they'll say, well, I do know her through this program or that program or whatever, and they can at least give you a personal reference. They can at least say you're not an axe murderer, right? You don't steal things. You have a good work ethic, right? You hand in homework all the time, at least, right? At least they'll say that. And if that will probably be good enough for most employers. Believe me, they're not going to check, they're not going to be looking up these things that closely. Okay, now the other reason why to get into this certificate program and build a rapport with the teachers in there is that you can also ask them while you're in there for anybody, any kind of way to get some work that you can do to build a portfolio, okay? Whether it's like a little accounting class certificate or, you know, God, I don't know, web design or accounting of something, you know, whatever it is. Um, just say, look, I'll do anything. I'll do it for free. Just give me something that so I can have an example of my work, okay? Or I can build a connection with somebody and then use them for a reference. Just say, I'm desperate. I'm in a situation where I don't have professional references. Just please introduce me to somebody that I can work for and get to know, and then maybe they will give me a reference. And most professors, they understand, especially if you get like an adjunct professor, they know all of the BS that people go through, and they'll do it. They'll find you somebody. Like what I did was, I met professors and I offered to take home work for them and format it for them and load it into their learning programs and this sort of thing. All right. And I said, I've got Photoshop skills. I can crop pictures for you and put them in there. You know, like simple things like that. Like, it's a lot of work for professors or people who are professionals to do the menial work of their job, and they'll let you if you say, hey, I'm doing it for free. Trying to make friends with these people and establish a relationship with them, and then say, look, in exchange for doing this, can I put you down as a reference? And they're gonna say yes. Okay, so now you have two people, all right, that you can get a reference from and get away from this person that you're working for. All right, now, I don't know about this, but usually they want 3, and I can't even remember, to tell you the truth. Like, I just think I knew somebody, like, personally, like, at the university, and I put them down, and I didn't even tell them that I was going to use them, and they never checked my references anyways. Just do something like that. One of the references I used was like the chair of the department, and I know that they didn't. I was going to go in his office and talk to him and say, look, I need to get out of this position, but I just it slipped my mind, and I didn't feel like this manager would really actually want me, so I didn't. It slipped my mind to tell him, and before I knew it, I had 2 interviews and I had an offer. So as far as I know, they didn't even check, okay? They didn't check with him either, because he never said a thing to me. And one of the other 2 people I put down, I knew, and I went to them and I said, did they call you? Did you hear it? No. So I don't know. If you can get into a field where there's a shortage of workers, they're gonna just, if you're halfway normal, they're gonna just take you, okay? So 2 of those fields are education. Nobody wants to work in education right now, and in healthcare. Nobody wants to work in healthcare right now, but I can guarantee you that if you're looking for work and you've just finished some kind of training program or some kind of certificate, and you can put a decent resume together and start pounding the pavement, you will get an offer somewhere. And it might not be ideal, but what you want to do is get into that certificate program. Okay, now once you have the certificate program, don't stop there, but let's hope that by the time you finish that certificate, you're in a full-time position. Okay, if you like it, you don't like it, it doesn't matter. The next thing you want to do is finish that degree. So roll that certificate into a degree. Just trust me. I know they say college isn't worth it, it's a lot of money, blah, 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 blah. It is worth it. It's going to give you a leg up, right? And if your employer will help pay for any of it, take advantage of it, because it's future money, it's future earning potential for you, right? And if you have to just take 1 class at a time and get on a payment plan, do it. It'll be worth it. And if you don't have any, college yet, get into an associate's program at the community college. Even if you're not academic, nowadays they have these new pathways that they're emphasizing in these community colleges. You can take something like electronics or fixing broken electronics. I mean, I was like, I want to learn that skill. Right? Highly employable, especially if like you can fix broken medical equipment.
they have these like great programs. I have to say though that those are usually those really good programs like that are located in heavy metropolitan areas. Like I wanted to get into a program like that, and the only one that I could really find was in Austin. And so I would have had to, and it wasn't online. But if you live in a major metropolitan area, you can get into one of those programs, right? And if you're not working, get in and get a loan, right? So that you can live while you're getting this degree. So that's another way that you can get by, right? So there are courses like that if you're not an academic type, right? Like fixing medical equipment, simulation training, like you set up crash sites and you figure out the logistics of who needs to be notified, and you arrange for help, like medical teams to come. You get on the phone with public health services and this sort of thing, and you coordinate all of this. That type of training, right? Stuff where it's not, it's you have to have common sense and you have to have some ability to work, but you don't need to be like figure out math equations or write a perfect paper, right? There's plenty of programs like that you can do. And so what I'm saying is get the certificate, get enrolled in the certificate first so you can put that on your resume. And if you want, enroll at the same time in the AAS program that goes with it, or the master's, or whatever it is. And what you can do is you can have the certificate date, right, and then have the associate's degree, the expected date of graduation, both of those on your resume. But if I were you, I would just emphasize the particular certificate that you're in and emphasize when you're going to be done with it, okay? And use that certificate to get your foot into a decent job, and then work at night on getting the rest of the credits for some kind of degree, whether it's associates, bachelor's, or master's. Get the next one. And even if you have a master's and you don't want to go into a PhD, you don't have the energy for it, you better be enrolled in a second master's. Because if the first one doesn't work out, you're going to need something else to go into. And a second master's will broaden your skill sets. It'd be great, I think, if you can get a second master's that's related to the first master's. So say you get into a college of education, you get your first master's in admin, some sort of admin program, educational administration, and you get the second master's in curriculum design, okay? Or I can't think of the different types of schools or college. Maybe you go into a communications degree, you get a straight communications, and then the next master's you get is marketing or advertising communications, something. You see what I'm saying? So you've got this like huge range of skills. And in those programs, be in good rapport and communications with the chairs who are running them, or the professors that you're meeting in those programs, and let them help you join groups, get into like some kind of little volunteer department there that they'll have at the school, and start building your resources and your resume, your references. Do it that way, okay? So I went from the 48,000 job to the next job up, which is like 10,000 more, and I was miserable at that position, miserable in it. But I had this master's, okay, and the whole time you're looking at what skill sets can I use, because I wasn't sure. Like I felt like she would fire me, or I would get fired, because I just could not control myself around this woman. Like I would say things to her like, please stop, like you're micromanaging me and I can't take it, and I would think, like, somebody said that to me and they were my employee, I'd be like, well then go find another job. But she never said anything like that to me. So but I was constantly looking, like, what skills can I use to further develop in this role? Okay, how can I get promoted? Once you get into that, good paying salaried job, then start thinking about how can I move into management, right? Believe me, if you got a narcissistic boss, they're not going to promote you. They're not going to promote you. They're not going to start being nice to you. They're not going to elevate you. They're not going to mentor you. They're not going to, push you forward. They're not going to help you get into a better role. They're going to make your life miserable. Okay, I can promise you it's not going to change. Every day I would go in hopeful, cheerful, hoping that, trying to be nice and pleasant every morning, and I would just turn around and ask her something and she would snarl back. And you know what kind of mood that puts you in for a day? Like, snarl back at me about things that I had nothing to do with, that it's totally inappropriate to be responding to me in that way, totally uncalled for, no reason for it whatsoever, okay? And if you want to have 40 hours a week for years on end with somebody like that, then go ahead, but I don't, okay? So I needed to get another position, and I didn't know how to get around her, right? And I also needed to make more money, get into that master's program or another degree program, but try to get one that's related but will give you extra skills. And then do the same thing. Have it on your resume, have the date out there, start listing your skills that you're getting in those courses, put them on your resume, and just bide your time, okay? Now, what I did to make it bearable was every morning I would get up and I would look at the job skills board, and I would see, like, okay, this is my dream job. What do I need to get into this role? What do I need to get promoted to get away from this woman? And I would look at all the things, and I could see that I needed a different type of degree and a different skill set. It was in my field, but it needed tweaking. And so I enroll in another master's, right? Start taking courses on LinkedIn or whatever, like Coursera. Like, $45 investment changed my life, like more than any big degree I ever got, right? I went from hourly to salary. You can do the same thing, but you need to know what the skills are, what's a hot, hiring thing. And look, if you can't, don't enroll in something that you can't do, okay? Know what your skills and your abilities are, right? If you can't write and you don't, you're not a very strong writer, don't enroll in a program that's communications or technical writing or something like that. Like, play to whatever your strengths are. There is work out there. You have to match it to your skill set to a program that you can succeed in, all right? So don't get into a program that you're going to fail in. And that's my advice. And once I started getting closer to the graduation date for that master's, I just put out a few feelers and I got hired right away, okay? Because again, it's education, and nobody wants to work in education, especially like little kid like K-12 education. Teachers are leaving that field as fast as, like, you can't even imagine, because it's really hard right now to be a teacher in America. Like, it is underpaid and overworked, and the kids are they're being pushed along from one year to the next. There's no discipline. There's no accountability. The parents aren't involved. But the parents are busy working 3 jobs. It's not just, the parents don't care. It's not that. It's that they do care, but they're working 3 part-time jobs, right? And so they're not there to support their kids. And it's, there's violence in the school system and everything now. There's drugs in the school system. If you could get into a good little school in the country, great, do it. But don't expect to make millions there. Now, if you do get into something in education in K-12, get the master's, because you can get promoted into administration or principal or school technology or school librarian, something that is better than just, the entry-level first job that you get in education. All right, now, I will apply into another master's to enhance the master's I just got, but I'm not going to be able to do it for a year because my benefits won't kick in for a year, educational benefits. But listen, what am I going to do in the meantime? right? Am I going to just go home at night and watch Netflix? No, no way. I find a little program at the community college, a certificate, to develop some skills in data analysis, right? It doesn't mean that I'm going to get a top paying job in data analysis or anything. It's a community college, costs me about $100 a credit, and I can get in there, and if I can't do it, I'm not out that much money. I just drop out, right? I don't even have to put it on my resume until I'm pretty sure that I'm going to get through the program. But it's a little certificate. I'll enroll in the certificate first. You take 3 classes, you get a certificate, a little paper that says accomplishment of something. Then you go into the next level. It's like 4 more classes. You get a certificate. And then if you take 12 classes total, you get an associate's degree. I don't need an associate's degree. I already got a master's degree. But these skill sets in this associate's degree are highly desired in my field. And I don't have them. You see what I'm saying? So suppose I start this job and I don't like it, or I want to get promoted, I want more money. Always be building your skill sets, okay? Always have something legit to show on your resume that you're doing that, right? To me, that's what these types of programs provide. Like you can say, oh, I'm enrolled in a class like through Google. There's nobody, that employer that you put that on your resume, they know that there's no accountability. They know that there's no checking in. They know that, like, it could just say to you, okay, well, show me your grades. There is no grades. They could ask for a transcript. There's no transcript. So this is what I'm saying is enroll in this school for the minimal thing. You can get that date closer to the date you're at on your resume, and then just keep enrolling in the next program and the next thing and the next thing. And then while you're working at your job, you're building skill sets there and a rapport with other professionals. Just keep track of it and keep looking. Keep every morning, even if you're in a job you like, be looking at the job boards, because you never know in this economy. All those people that were in diversity and inclusion offices they're gone. In education, right? In higher ed, they're gone. They're closing those offices all across the country, and people are losing those jobs. And a lot of them just have degrees in diversity education, whatever, student affairs. And that so what do you do? What do you do, right? You're going to be looking for the same job. There's already people in those jobs, and there's, 2,000 professionals in America that just got laid off. So if there's 8 job openings or 10 job openings, 2,000 people are applying for those jobs. Like, get on LinkedIn and you can see how many people are applying for this job, that job, right? If they had another degree in the same field, like say it was administration, they got a second degree in administration, they could move over into working in a registrar's office to make sure these students all get into the classes they're supposed to get into. But believe me, you're not going over into registration without a degree in administration. Not anything good. You can maybe get something early over there. So this is what I'm saying is, don't get stuck in one degree area. Like, branch out. It can be in a related field, but branch out. Hold all the cards in your hand. Hold all the cards, okay? So that you can parlay. If something goes wrong, or you get laid off, or you get fired, even you can parlay those. You can go into another department, okay? If you have all related, skill sets. All right. So that's my advice. That's how you can get rid of a narcissistic, terrible boss. That's what I did. I got this new job offer. It pays like $7,000 more than I keep going up. I started at like $17 an hour in the library, and I've made 2 moves since then, 2 or 3, and I've gone up like 20 grand. And I couldn't even have started it without the 45 degree, the $45 little certificate I got from Coursera. Okay. So check it out and get into something where you can put it on paper, and you've got some paper, and you can meet some people who will help you to escape your hellhole. That's what I did, and that's my truth bomb for today. Talk to you soon.